Welcome to Conversations Catapults. I'm your host, Nathan, and today I am joined by the Hedrick Society for Excellence. Say hello, Excellence.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice to be here again. My name is Ben. You know me as a level 10 gnome wizard Windsor Wallaby on the hit podcast Trials and Trebuchets. Thank you.
I vow to eat all the ice cream sandwiches from No Frills. That is my vow to this excellent Hedrick Society. And it's me, Carla, and I play the level 10 Tiefling Roguelike Integridad Berry from the hit audio show Trials and Trebuchets.
Technically correct.
It's called a podcast?
Same thing. Hi, I'm Hedrick Society person Sam, and I play the level 10 human sorceress Sarah Cinderman. Hey, does this food taste funny?
Uh-oh.
Oh no,
They died.
oh no.
Yeah, I know this is an audio medium. Sam did just do a full pratfall on webcam, fully on the ground.
I know my BLS. I need to give you resuscitation.
Drive all the way here to give me resuscitation.
Quick, you need to get the poison out somehow.
Isn't it so fucked up that it's the Hedrick or Hendrick Society?
It's spelled Hedrick, but I can only ever hear Hendrick.
I keep on wanting to say Hendrick, but my whole thing is the excellence is not the noun excellence, it's the plural noun excellent with a T instead of a C.
Oh, is it?
Which is just
I spelled it the other way, and I'm not changing it.
That's absolutely fair. So our members just called, oh yeah, I'm an excellent in the Hedrick Society. Fuck,
I think it's because her first name is Henrietta. So Henrietta Hedrick.
That makes sense. You know what?
I think that's where the confusion's happening.
Makes sense.
Also, fucking wild that her bones are just there. Are the other founders' bones also at the school?
I don't know if anyone is as equally fucked up as
Are there other
Henrietta.
secret societies that also have the bones there?
Yeah, the problem is that you have to be in the bottom percentile to get into the other, one of the other societies.
Yeah.
So it's the lowest test scores. It's
Oh my gosh.
we want you to join us.
It will be perfect for Mira and Integrity.
Yo,
Do you think Henrietta was just in her office and she got everything all ready, and then she went over to her superior, her second in command, with a sheet of paper that says, "Hey, come grave rob my grave once I'm dead. We'll need it for something."
No, imagine the Will saying, "I want to be at the school." Oh, you want your ashes scattered? No.
Bones and all.
Baby.
It's like those Shakespeare performers who donate their skulls to their old theaters to be in
people do
productions
that?
of Hamlet.
What?
That's badass.
That may be a fucking rumor that I'm just repeating without ever verifying.
That would be
but I'm
fucking
fairly certain
cool.
that at least one person has done
There's
that.
a movie where the person who screamed because there was a room full of dead and it was actual bones and skeletons of actual people kind of thing. I don't know what movie that is, but every time I listen to fun facts about movies you didn't know, they always bring up there were actually bodies in whatever that movie was.
Yeah, I remember that movie they were talking about because apparently that movie and that entire series is cursed.
Oh yeah, I heard about that
Because
too.
of
Yeah.
them using the actresses or actors died in weird ways because they say they connect it to the disturbance of the souls of those bones that they use.
But they didn't have no
you
fucking
can really
idea what we're
tell
talking
Halloween
about.
is yeah, Halloween is really coming here. You can hear it in our voices. But speaking of equally fucked up productions and cursed productions, I wanted to talk to our two in-canon excellents. Sam, Ben, please tell me, how did your characters feel about being chosen to join the ranks of the HSE?
I think when Serenep first heard about it, it was oh yeah, it's the smart, the really smart kids are joining, and I don't think she really connected to the fact of, oh, because of my family ties, this would be a thing I would be I think she just thought oh, I'm really smart, so it's really nice that they asked me to join because I have the test scores to prove it. And then being told at the thing oh yeah, they were really hoping that your connections and blah blah. I'm oh well, I'm still smart though, right?
A lot of people are smart at Wildcliff.
Damn.
You gotta set yourself apart somehow.
I'm a disgraced, treasonous person. I don't know.
I think Winsler probably never gave it a second thought when it actually was going to happen, invitation and such. I think in the moment he was oh yeah, that's cool. And then immediately as everything else happened, it's detail out of the brain. It is gone.
Whoops.
It is pushed somewhere else.
if Sereneth hadn't been like, hey, by the way, we should go there together, would Winsler have gone? Like, would that have been like
I mean,
a thought?
he would have gone because of the meeting with Ainsley, but I think if Ainsley didn't meet up with him, he probably would have forgot. and then just never go
Whoops.
because he's got other stuff that he's doing as well.
Yeah.
You don't think that they will just teleport you? They're like, the other person that we invited is not here.
Wouldn't-
And then all of a sudden you will just like poof out of nowhere.
Isn't
They're
that
kinda sick.
kidnapping? I feel like that wouldn't look
But
good on
it's
their whole reputation.
But it's
That
a
is
secret
applied
society.
conjuration.
Sororities do that all the time. It's fine.
It doesn't make it any better.
It doesn't make it better, but it does make it something that they can get away with.
It would be funny, I guess.
It
You were
would be
technically
funny.
invited. You're not kidnapped.
It's like, what were y'all's impressions of the society when you ended up getting to like go through that ritual in the beginning and then see the other members and kind of like get what the vibe was then?
Cult.
Because like if really,
It very much felt like a cult. It less so now, but more, it what like in the very beginning when everything was being described, it very much felt like a cult.
When I heard about it, I don't know, like schools have clubs and that sort of thing, and they make clubs based on like what one thing is there in common. It's like an anime club, that kind of stuff. They just base it off of academics. I think the only part that really made me question going back of like, wait, what exactly is this? Was because when we were first told about it, I thought it was just going to be like the students that are currently at Wildcliff, the smartest kids, so that they can help each other or like something like that to like keep on top of things. And then it was like older people are also there who have already graduated, and then like the connections are happening, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, honestly, if Winsler hadn't had his whole moment at the very beginning with Professor Doss, I would have been very much more on edge the entire time. But because he made that joke and she, like, snickered and kind of, like, relaxed and explained what was going on, it definitely, like, calmed down the entire thing of, okay, this is not evil. This is just a group of people who are just kind of doing their thing that they've been doing for a long time.
Yeah. I feel like it was definitely a club just meant for the students.
Yeah, that's what I
It really
thought too,
felt like
yeah.
that. I was expecting we're just gonna all go to the chapel or whatever, and it's just gonna be a bunch of stupid, smart kids sitting around in a circle talking about shit that's going on and like smart people things. What we got was like some weird cult that happens at sundown, and there's bones on the
I
altar.
still don't. Okay, even though we had the bones and everything, I still don't think it's a cult. I don't get that vibe that it's a cult. I just
Well,
like.
I know it's not a cult now, but I can't shake the feeling.
Carla, you looked like you were about to say something, or am I misreading?
I was just saying that I like from the outside, I like tradition of how it is. Like, there's like prestige there. I don't know. Like, integrity, I was thinking of like getting integrity to be like, there's this other student who's like,
God, as Zealocles
dear.
just being like, I was watching the tournament and you know who was
Hey,
really
so
cool?
I should totally get an invite.
But that does bring up a good point though of like, oh, Joan isn't a part of this or anything like
She's
that. So
dumb.
like does that affect like integrity's view of the society, like from the outside looking in?
I don't think Joan was smart in the first place.
She's
Or
strong.
is-
Damn, I mean that.
Like, considering that we heard them talk about how the prestige and their connections help them be a part of the community or the society. So I think more so for integrity, she just likes being a part of things, but it's never really comparing herself to other students. Does that make sense?
No, I get that. And I also like really appreciate what you said about like enjoying the ritual aspect of certain things or like the semi like occult type of stuff.
Yeah. I love when weird stuff happens because
Yeah.
like,
It also is very good at like setting a mood for like new members, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
Then it
It's
goes
very
right
funny.
into two adults having a screaming match in one corner of the room. And just like, I'm just like, yes, this is what we need. Because they're really smart people. They hate being wrong. They're going to fight with each other very loudly.
That's true. Yeah, once you got to see those like members of the society, did that affect your view? And also like did it make you consider your own character's paths with this group of people? You know, just thinking about like, are these visions of what your futures are going to be? You know, like I have no idea what Sereneth plans on doing in her current state, or, you know, Winsler for that matter, like plans on being an academic, it seems, and getting to see in real life two academics who are at each other's throats for no good reason.
Winsler very much lives in the moment, I think. I don't know if he particularly sees any future with this group for now. It would probably be a useful resource like right now and in the future. So there's that, but I don't think he really puts much thought into something like that.
Do you think that's a flaw of Winsler's?
Probably not able to sort of like envision like a clear path to point A to point B in however so long a time. It's very much like takes what comes.
Yeah, life is very much happening at Winsler for a lot of this, and he's able to react really well. But that's also led to some of the low points in his career as a student, especially, helping Crow build golems and things like that. It was very much focusing on what was right ahead rather than thinking about long term.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if that's something that shifts over time, having been aware of that, or if it is going to be a fatal flaw that plagues him for the rest of his life.
Could go either way.
Hell yeah. Or it could be both. Could, just be something that trips him up every now and then, like it is now.
Hey.
Yep. You never know what could happen.
Meanwhile, Serenep is leaving the realm of needing to care about high status, or seems to have taken to it very well, of becoming a commoner. I'm interested, is this a path to regain what she has lost, or a path to gain something new, or is it something that she is wholly uninterested in?
I think right now she's viewing this society as a way to, I don't know, meet with people. I don't think she's really thinking about status right now. I think because it wasn't really hers, it was her parents' status that was a large part of it. She's had a year now to
I gotta disagree
fucking
with
roll
you
the
there.
dirt.
Her status as princess was major in getting chosen for this.
I think she wants to build, because she kind of lost everything there for the break and everything. So I think she's kind of viewing this as a time to build herself up, but not to the same point. Before it was being born in the right place and blah blah blah. Now it's here's even though she doesn't have the extra points that they wanted for the society, she's kind of hoping that her knowledge and her pursuit of more knowledge is going to be something that they can view as worthy, and then she'll build her own status based on that search for knowledge instead of how much money she had.
Do you think that search of knowledge is unique in Wildcliff?
Certainly not. And I feel like a lot of people, especially Kurt, has used his pursuit of knowledge is building things and that kind of stuff. I think for her, it's just a kind of hope of, even though I'm not too different from everybody else now, you did also choose me because of my smarts, I would hope. So let me try and prove myself again in a different way.
I feel like this is the best place for her to meet the right people for it, though, because these are influential people, and these are people who have, goals. Having Serenep around these people can be a very useful tool. It just needs creativity and how can she follow through with her promise to the skull. Yeah, so it's nice.
God, I fucking loved the promise to the skull bit. Was so good to me because there is Serenep with that, and then there's Winsler who has a list of druid spells, has just learned about natural magic and comes in as we're gonna get cow-based system of measurement.
All right, now here's the thing about that. There's somewhat of a reason why I decided to go with that.
You were so ready to defend
instead
this.
of the others.
Yes.
You didn't want to share the information with someone
I didn't
powerful.
want to share all this important information because they might question, why is this little gnome looking into this stuff specifically? Because this isn't something that somebody just comes out and says that they want to do for the sake of doing it. There's a reason behind it. So that might draw too much attention in a zone where there are a lot of influential parties, and they may have their own agendas outside of the society that they may want to pursue. So it's more of a safety reason. Also, I think the cow measurement for magic is just too funny to not go
so
to.
Good. I keep the problem is it is not only funny, but it also sticks in my head as something of all right, how would I make this work? Mm-hmm. Is it how much? God, it's very fun to consider.
I've got ideas on how I could actually make it work, but we'll wait until that time comes.
When that time comes, I'm going to do to you what I have done to Sarah for this episode, which is like pull you from the player section and put you in the DMs and the sliding into the DMs and just be like, all right, you're going to go through every way this cow system of magic works.
I'll be prepared, I'm sure.
Carla, I had a thought. If Integrity was invited to join the society, do you know what she would have promised to do to that skull?
Oh, that's a very...
Or not promised to do to that skull, but like promised to do...
I promise
she
I will
promises
bury
this to the
you.
skull.
Harsh.
I think maybe Integrity is like the loose lips, the antithesis, I can't say the word, to Winsler's, I'm not gonna say anything that might lead them on to something, because I feel like Integrity might not think much of it and just be like, I vow to kill the progenitor, and they're like, who the heck is the progenitor?
Yeah. I have these 3 orbs that I'm trying to figure out. I brought them here with me today.
Or do I?
Hey,
Like
look,
that
I can
kind of-
juggle.
Imagine like the rest of like the party starts like, okay, we're just gonna get started, because Integrity just is like still resting her head on the skull, telling the entire story of like, okay, so to understand why this promise makes sense, here's the entire story starting from day 1. Okay, so we came to school, right, and we wanted to do the
Oh my god.
Yeah. The Henry, like the skull, like is essentially the Breaking Bad meme of like, Integrity, what are you
the
talking
entire
about?
podcast is actually the lead up to the entire story
The recap.
that she's been telling.
Yeah, so what happens is, once Integrity says, all right, so here's what happens, it cuts away to the intro of the episode 1, and we just re-release all the episodes.
God, that'd be really good,
Oh,
actually.
that'd be beautiful.
That'd be so funny.
Carla, do you have another thing to say, or
No,
am I
I'm
stepping
just
over
smiling.
you here? Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. But speaking of Integrity, like getting into the society, I wanted to ask what your original plan for the infiltration was. Because I could tell, like, you were like up on the roof ready to do some shit, and I really
Yes.
wanted to like pick your brain about what you were going for there.
Okay.
Was it the return of Agent Octopus?
Well, before going in, this is like outside of the podcast. Like, I was thinking about what I would want Integrity to do. Because in like a few episodes ago, she was literally she took the form of someone else. Who was she? Sorry, I'm trying to remember.
Was it Lucia?
No,
Wait.
the golem. So like when
Yes.
I
That's right.
snuck into Bailey Blue's room, I was a golem. And I told myself, because I wanted to like try out different things, I just wanted to be more creative and not repeat the same thing within like the first couple of episodes. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to disguise myself. So I needed to do something else. I was thinking, okay, I can climb the side of the tower, but then once I found out that there's taller towers around, I was like, okay, I think that I can climb up one of these buildings and use like my rope to sort of like zip my way through, climb through the second floor, and snoop through there without like actually interacting with the society, and just snoop.
Mission Impossible Integrity.
Basically,
Mission Integrity.
yes. So that was the initial plan, to not have direct contact with the society. But I mean, we contacted them and that was pretty fun. So I'm not really regretting that much.
Yeah, it all worked out really well, and it had some great roleplay moments too. But
I mean, we killed someone potentially accidentally. We don't know what happened to this person.
you didn't kill them. Someone else probably killed them while you had set them up for it. You know, that's manslaughter at worst.
No.
I just
what?
remembered something. Isn't that one kid's body still in the tower that Loud disguised himself as? Did we ever get him out of there?
Oh, that's
No.
that. Who cares?
Sorry,
was
that
ages
just popped
ago.
into my brain suddenly because you were talking about like bodies, and I was like, wait a second.
Swept under the rug. No
Yeah,
need to
don't worry
worry.
about
Yeah,
that.
that was gonna be a thing. We would have had it by now.
Yep.
God, though, Carla and Ben, what was it like at the end of 194 to like have these con saves and then suddenly be like, all right, you two are just removed from play? Especially Carla, Integrity keeps the orbs on her at all times.
Not all of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've always like intentionally always said that because like knowing how these orbs attune themselves to the creatures that have them, I always just had kept the original orb with me and the other orbs
Progress, right?
Yes, progress. And the other orbs someplace else. Just because like understanding the whole attunement thing. I don't want 3 things to be attuned to me. I don't think integrity has the capacity to hold that power, I guess, in her hands.
Yeah.
I think it was really ironic that the 2 people who actually had any interaction with the rats before were the ones who went down and left the 2 who had no idea in the fucking dark.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that's kind of funny because now we have to figure out what's going on there.
It couldn't have picked like the worst 2 people to be thrown unconscious for this particular moment.
Yeah, it's brutal out there. God. That's the thing though. What do you even like say in that moment of I know that the rats are fucking with us, but I'm gonna eat everything that I see at this party.
I don't know. It
was
happened.
safe.
Like that's what the dice rolled. I guess we're just gonna have to
Yeah.
take what comes. I mean, it may not be as bad as we think, but it could also be extremely bad. We have no idea.
Maybe the network is nice. You don't know.
I beg to differ.
It's like a Matrix scene.
Oh my
It's
God.
definitely not gonna be nice, but I don't think it's gonna be too awful either.
Yeah, I look forward to what the network is. Like
Yeah.
how will we sort of navigate through that? Are we going to be acting within the network, or will it be like after we wake up? Is it something weird like we're just connected to something forever? Chip on our
There's
shoulder?
more questions now than ever. So I feel like we're too focused on trying to like get as much information as we can, over being more concerned about like, oh my god, we could die.
Yeah, like it doesn't sound like being in the network kills you. I think the rats were part of the network as well, and they weren't like dead or anything besides the one you guys killed. But like, yeah, like it's not like they were dead or anything. They were just living.
I also don't expect the rats to be lying either because they're rats.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that they would just say whatever they've been told and just would reciprocate that information. So them saying that the poison is only putting people unconscious and linking them to the network, I don't think they ever mentioned death, at least like right off the bat. So
Yeah, no. You have like fear is like the fear of death is not the thing here. It's like whether you are I think what worries me about the idea like this network is it a way of like connecting a lot of people together, or is it a way of controlling a lot of people? Or is it like your own thoughts are no longer safe from whatever Our Lady of the Deep or whomever, like getting to just have full access to them.
That's pretty
Not control
scary.
them, just getting to see
like
them.
hive mind kind of thing.
I was just gonna say, like, and like, how much is Bailey a part of that network already?
I would imagine, yeah.
Because like this case, because like something I've been thinking about recently is there have been 2 times where Bailey has been connected to something getting into the school and messing with students, whether it be erasing people's memories and dragging their bodies into the friggin' sewers, or this whole thing, which again, like, we don't really know how involved he is in it yet. Like, there's apparently something he doesn't want to do, but like, I feel like he's very, I don't know. It puts me back and forth. Too much stuff has happened because of him at this point, and I feel like if this is because of him as well, we have to expel Bailey, is what I'm saying.
Out of all warlock packs that we've seen, the 2 that we know of, like it seems that like whenever you make a pact with a creature or some entity, the entity tries to manipulate you into performing what it wants to happen. So I think because Bailey is so directly affected by it and the way that his behavior was when Serenep was scrying him in his room, I think that he has a direct hand in this because he's being forced to by whatever patron he decided to form a pact with. So I would imagine he's probably he's probably the most connected to the network than probably anyone else because of the direct influence from the patron.
For sure. I feel like he is a assistant.
Yeah, second in command unwillingly.
And
I
I'm just
guess.
saying, like, you know, if we get, and this is 100% not because I don't like Bailey, but like, you know, if we got rid of him, like that would like maybe
I don't
stop
think we
some
can just
stuff.
get rid of them that quickly.
I don't think literally offing a student would look good on us any more than we've already been fucking up so far.
But guys. Come on.
I have a feeling it may come down to that. And that's going to be probably the tipping point for Swim.
Yeah.
Which will be the fun thing of, like, in order to preserve not necessarily your innocence, but like your justification in that, it needs to be as obvious as possible, like why you are doing what you are doing.
Yeah.
If things do come that far, but who knows, they may not. Things may get much worse for you because Serenep is the last member of the party to not be connected to the network. She has less than a minute before she comes back from banishment, and who knows if Yakov and Mira will even be in the area when she returns.
Yeah.
And if she goes to any sort of like authority figure here, it will jeopardize her position within the HSE. Because like, if you're going to go let everyone know that, hey, at our secret society meeting, a lot of people fell asleep, then that secret society is no longer a thing.
I mean, I could
right?
like talk about the fact that like me and Mira like collapsed or something, and then there was like the whole thing, like the rats in the wall.
After breaking into another student's room.
Yeah, good point.
You know what you could do? You can pull them out of the chapel and then make a cake that says happy birthday, like Professor Doss or something.
What the fuck?
Okay, if the bodies are still there after I get back, number one, if I don't get like sidetracked by whatever's happening with Mira in that meantime, to not immediately go back, yes, I will stage a surprise birthday party for Professor Doss.
Like they gathered, but it's not because of a secret society.
Yeah, they're
it's
all
a
just
professor's
friends.
birthday.
Yeah, we all love Professor Doss and we want to celebrate her birthday. I'm kind of excited to see what happens when Jonas gets out of that. Because, like, you guys are going to wake up. So I think there's going to be a whole thing of, like, you guys are, like, weirdly connected to other things. And it's, like, a weird thing that's happening.
We're going to wake up, but it's a matter of when we wake up.
And it's like a
Well, you know how long it'll
half
be.
a day.
It'll
I
be
know.
over 10 hours, you know? Like
14
that, it's
hours
a fucking
for
day.
integrity.
The longer you sleep, the worse it's probably going to be, and the less agency we'll have in the situation. So if
Yeah.
Winslow waking up alone is in like some darker, creepy dungeon thing is probably not going to be very good.
I am so excited to see where you all wake up that I just cannot wait any longer
Same.
for the next episode.
I just want Tuesday to come.
We're almost there. I'm
Almost
so
there.
excited. But I would like to thank the three of you for joining me for today's episode of Conversations and Catapults. And dear listener, thank you for joining us as well. Stick around after the break as we go to slide into the DMs.
Thank you again, as always. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for
Bye.
having us.
Welcome back to Sliding into the DMs. I'm your host, Nathan, and today I'm joined by the network.
Hello, it is I, Sarah, and Luke, both the Dungeon Master and the player.
Expertly done, and I'm sure that won't be hard to edit at all to make it in sync or anything like that. Perfectly timed. God, as you can see, and as I've probably already said in the players section, we actually have someone new joining us and sliding into the DMs. I have pulled Sarah from the players pool and put her with us to talk about her very involved role in this set of 3 episodes. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about everything that just happened in those past 3 episodes because it got pretty wild, I think.
It did get pretty wild, and I wanted to talk about like the meta reason behind that, or what I expect to be the meta reason behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And this is obviously like, speculation on my part. Listeners at home may not know this. Usually recording sessions are like a set of 2 episodes.
2, sometimes 1.
Yeah.
And this time, due to various like scheduling constraints caused by some people
We
who
don't
might
need
be
to
on
go into
this recording.
we never need to say whose fault it is. There was
I mean,
You're
a
right,
couple
you're right.
like selfish assholes on the podcast are going to New York in a couple weeks, and so that really
a
messes
really
with things.
selfish piece of shit got hit by a hurricane, so we couldn't record a podcast.
Forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, really.
God, hi, Ben.
But yeah, it was 3 episodes instead of 2, which is like, I personally went into this with like the biggest gloom. If I had to describe my mood, I would say I was prepared for my own funeral the day of, because anytime we do more than 2 episodes, there's just this extended chance of error, right? So like I have a general interval, a confidence interval of where things will go for 2 episodes or 1 episode. But when we extend that further, it means that I need to either prep more or be able to on the fly come up with things that are generally on theme and corresponding with all of the things we've hooked up and setting up things in the future, right? It's just a lot harder to improvise the story as we play it on the fly. The last time we played more than 3 episodes was, other than in Weenie Hollow, the last time we recorded more than 2 episodes was Whiteout, which very notably, I remember, this is in a blooper reel somewhere, patrons, there was a blooper where we cut the episode and then, or like we had to switch to like Google Meets or something, and I was literally like, oh my god, I have to improvise like 8 hours of shit because they aren't going into the little castle, and I sang a little song. It's in the blooper reel again.
I remember this.
Yes, and I was literally shitting my pants about it at that time, which is why nothing happens in Whiteout, is because I was so caught off guard and not able to do any interesting stuff because we recorded literally all of Whiteout except for like the first 2 episodes in one sitting. So, needless to say, going into this recording with more than 2 episodes on the slate, I was really nervous and I had a lot of stuff prepared and we did not get to it. Okay, so I would say we did not get to half of it, and we will never be getting to that other half of things now.
Why? Are you suggesting something went wrong?
Yeah, everything's fucking hunky-dory.
Last CNC, it was like, oh yeah, we're going to get to the debate, which I'm really excited for.
Yep.
And now it was like, welcome to the hidden ritual that is also leading into... Fuck it, we're going into straight horror show territory.
Which is interesting, the fact that there's this kind of horror aspect of the last episode, because Weenie Hollow is typically one of the only other times where we are recording in such batches. And it's interesting to me, Luke, that you had such this big anxiety going into this recording, because I think that at the end of the day, we were really served by the multiple at once, because I think it created a really strong sense of mounting tension, especially in that final scene where, you know, Serenep has been banished to a harmless demiplane. Mira's trying to figure out what to do. I think typically when we record these, all of us have the benefit of taking a break, whether it's the fact that we typically record a few weeks in advance, so we're able to, on a meta level, stop and reflect and plan, or just in the sense that we cut this out typically, but there will be long moments of us thinking or engaging in silence as we try to figure out what to do. You did not abide by any of that. You were like, what are you doing right now? You have 60 seconds.
I'm really glad that I'm able to do that, and it actually still, after however many years, still has that effect. If I have one skill as a DM, it's speaking as a little fun little guy. But if I have a second skill, it's like yelling at my players and forcing them to make really quick decisions. And I'm glad that I'm glad that it, like, you got brought into the scene and all the tension. I mean, even Sam as well did, who's usually impervious to that stuff. Other than, like, I think like a few situations, like the Philip wanting to shoot someone and die kind of thing, where I was like, no, you need to make a decision now. And then we had like a little mounting tension at the end. But with this one, we were out on a wing where I didn't think you guys were going to go into that basement, quite frankly. And I was like so prepared for if you went into the basement, like you and Integrity, or Mira and Integrity, could have immediately gone in there right at the beginning. And I was like, kind of like, oh my God, what is happening? This is a weird slog of a first episode where they're just hiding in a door jam, being quiet as possible, right? And I was like, am I spotlighting stuff wrong? And then it was fine. We had a whole interlude of conversations with NPCs, a little bit of like deceit and deception going on, and then you guys all start to leave, and I'm like, oh, are you checking on this one tiefling? And you guys are like, oh yeah, of course, he's gone, right? And then immediately pulls you into the situation, and then I can spring the traps that I had already prepared to spring. And then with just Serenep and Mira, we have like this rising tension of like our 2 friends, our 2 buddies are super unconscious for the next half a day, and we need to take action right now. You opted for the very exciting action, which honestly in the moment my stomach dropped, and because like abandoning Winsler and Integrity.
Splitting the party in the worst way.
Splitting the party on the worst way it's ever been split. To put it in perspective, Sarah, you after the episode asked, oh, what was Nesca on like the kind of like threat level, right? And I was like, oh, she was probably like a 9. And this is like a 7-ish right now. Like we left the end of that episode at like a 7. And I think in the next episode, it's definitely going to get worse because I just have so many options presented to me that allow me to take instantaneous action that no one can prevent now, right? You have Mira's out. Mira's unconscious. Serenup's in the Dem plane. Winsler and Integrity are unconscious for the next 11 and 14 fucking hours. I can do literally whatever I want with those two because they have been left behind.
Which, how does that feel as, like, when you're in that position of power, you have to handle that so carefully because you are also making a show.
Yeah.
If this were like a home game, this could very easily lead to like a total party kill or like total party defeat type of scenario where it's like, yeah, 3 out of like 4 of you are, taken out. The 4th one is at the mercy of this guard at the door who, like, after a minute, you're going to come back and it'll just be you and him.
Yeah.
Let's see how that fucking goes for you.
Yeah.
How do you balance that power?
You fucking grasp it and pull it into your arms, into your little mitts as often as you can, because I can't ever have a W on this fucking show. I want to do horrible things to everyone always, and my players are like, hey, can we slow down with the pacing here? Hey, I rolled a 30. Hey, I do the thing that saves the party, right?
I've been telling you for years to kill Mira, my dude.
Killing people is not the most fun thing to happen in this show.
You're right.
That's why it hasn't
completely
happened.
right.
There's a different campaign that we could have played. There's different campaigns to play where death is a much more exciting endeavor because you're not high-level spellcasters and you don't have as immediate access to it. This isn't the game where killing a player is a big deal because the things that occur after someone dies are much more interesting, and those are integral plot elements, so it's not something that's like, if death comes up. I've definitely set up situations where I'm okay with a character dying so far in the podcast, like a player character, one of our main students. The corruption fight is like the highest on that tier, because again, like Integrity had 2 death saves and then had to roll, right? That is literally hanging in the balance, right? I was 1000% prepared for Integrity to die right then, right there. I was excited for it, in fact. The scenario was designed around someone dying, quite frankly. Most scenarios, most fights are designed to be lethal enough to kill a player, right? I don't super pull punches. If a player died at any point, we can immediately divert into a very fun, different branch of this story, right? Because of that. So, in a similar note, no one here is dead, right? They are all still alive, and so they can still feel the consequences of their actions a lot more fully. Yeah, Winsler and Integrity are for me to do whatever, right? And that's a gift to a dungeon master, I think, right?
And the last person standing is also one of the only people without any healing magic whatsoever, which is doubly fun.
Yeah, I'm very curious how that situation is going to be approached with Serenepth, because banishment lasts for 1 minute, right?
It's true, yeah.
So basically, Serenepth is going to come out of her banishment, and Yakov is going to come out of Hold Person at the exact same time. I'm very curious if it's going to be a situation of, like...
That's not true, Sarah.
Oh, really?
Hold Person is a concentration spell. You've
right,
immediately
of
lost
course.
it.
You're right. What am I saying?
To do
My point.
The fuck he wants.
You are
But
correct.
yes.
My point being that Yakov will already be active when Serenepth returns.
Correct.
And I don't know. I'm very interested to see I'm curious for you, because we have had situations in the past. I mean, Serenepth and the Hatch is the first one that I can think of, but there are some others where you only have one party member, like, in a scene who is able to make really meaningful choices. How do you handle that, both from the perspective of a DM and from the perspective of, we're making a show?
Yeah, we'll deal with the circumstances following Serenepth's return to the material plane. And then I will skip in time. That's literally what's going to happen. There's no other circumstance. Unless you guys have a fucking immediate fix. Serenepth can't scry again. I don't know if Mira will be there when Serenepth's back, So in the event that it's just Serenepth, we'll deal with the immediate consequences of that and what Serenepth wants to do. And then if there's nothing amazing, we're going to cut until a time that everyone's awake again and can get their situation. And I assume Winsler and Integrity will find themselves in a very alien situation compared to what they fell asleep in or went unconscious due to poison in. And I think it's pretty easy, honestly. I have 3 characters that I can have very graduated control of, right? Mira is unconscious on the floor. There's still an NPC in the scene who can act, so we can do whatever there, right? And then Serenepth is really the only mystery to me as a dungeon master, because the agency, Serenepth's the only person with agency, and that's the point you're making, right? And so I am uncertain what Serenepth's going to do. I hope it's something smart, and everything else will be a nice little surprise for me to unfold for everyone. And then obviously agency returns to everyone, presuming, you know.
I mean, who knows how much agency they have now that they're a part of the network.
Yeah.
Which is like, God, it's very funny how both, like, there were 2 episodes that both ended with, like, oh, welcome to the network.
Yes.
Like, and it still hit hard both times. I'm quite excited. In fact, I really loved the bit while we were seeing, like, the HSE and all, like, the students, you know, all these pricks.
Yeah.
What I loved about that socialization episode is, and I got this more, like, just knowing how things end up, like Sarah told me what would happen in the episodes. How many little hints were you giving that the food was poisoned? Like, were those meant to be, like, eagle-eyed stuff? Because there are moments where, like, someone takes a bite and then they immediately begin to, like, kind of throw up or choke on it. And everyone is like, oh, that's normal. Like, that's just
Nathan,
a regular
my
thing.
history with poisoning food in Dungeons and Dragons is storied and singularly revolves around the fact that if I ask any of my players, are you going to eat and drink the food? Unless they bring it up, they will immediately suspect me of poisoning the food and the water. There was a campaign finale derailed by this single question.
I'm so sorry.
Which is one of the most spectacular moments of Dungeons and Dragons, improvising a complete finale where your players subvert the entire encounter that you've planned because you were a fool and gave one of them the ability to cure poisons. So honestly, Nathan, I was trying not to hint at it at all. I put the piece there prior that there was beings on campus, Our Lady of the Deep and her little critters who were going to poison things. Bailey counts as a little critter, side note.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And so any reference to food, the food was put there explicitly because I wanted it to be like a socialization thing. Of course, you're going to have food and water and wine and such when you're hanging out in a secret society. And it was passively there, and they could engage with it as an element of the socialization, as if a kind of like a normalcy. I described many of the other NPCs taking part in such things because, one, it's very normal, and two, I wanted to very much highlight after people started falling, because that was something I was prepared for, was for people to start dropping while they were still in the room, right? Because different NPCs obviously would be susceptible, or like I would imagine an old woman, right? To be like Doss, I can point to as a person I intentionally put there as like, this is probably going to be the first person to succumb to poison at this event. And I was trying my best not to really draw that much attention to it, quite frankly.
Interesting, because I think that was clear. Like, you were not being super obvious about like, oh, people's faces are going purple after they take a little sip of wine.
Are you guys eating and drinking anything? I'm only asking because there's wine.
Yeah, literally.
God. And I love that what saved Mira was the disguised self as one of the Crolums, which I also wanted to get into with the two of you as well. Like, Sarah, when you're playing someone who is like in this deep undercover, there is like the optimal way to like go for it, which is, I know that Crolums don't speak, and they definitely are not like doing canvassing at all. And I don't know, I wanted to talk to you both about like, how do you balance what is optimal / like on the DM side, what is a realistic reaction to these things, and what is more entertaining?
Yeah.
You know, you all are making a show.
I guess for me, I think about it like in that specific scene as kind of having 3 obligations, 2 of which are to Mira and to following Mira's desires, and the third being the fact that we are making a podcast and a show. With Mira, she has 2 things that she wants, right? The first is that she wants to get out of this situation undetected, and the second is that she wants information on Bailey and on the polls. So between that, it is a thing of, what does Mira prioritize more? You know, possibly it could be infiltrating this whole situation, but she got into here for a very specific purpose, and she's going to try to accomplish that purpose. And it's also the question of, between those 2 desires that are potentially conflicting within Mira, which one on the higher level is more fun to play, creates more interesting outcomes, and is more fun to listen to. And so I think it is very easy then to create that reverse justification of Mira is willing to both compromise her own secrecy in this moment to show a little bit of her personality and get more information, and also I am playing Mira as somebody who has flaws and is not always good at lying and hiding things, and I'm making the conscious choice to not play this optimally and to have Mira maybe have to make a few more deception checks because she's going to be bad at this. I think it's more fun. I think it's more fun to play. I think it's more fun to listen to.
And Luke, there's that temptation there of like, oh, I could derail things by like having someone just roll high enough. Like, not necessarily that like you would fudge a roll or anything like that, but like there is all opportunity that someone rolls high enough to see through this disguise.
Yeah.
That could have really changed the tone of everything.
So the elements we need to dissect in that case are the just setting of being in a high society meeting. These people are on alert, but not from threats of incursion, from threats of like others, right? If everyone's viewing everyone here with their hoods down and a robe on as a safe person, right? That's the agreement you make when you say, I'm going to reveal my secret identity to these other 30 people, right? Is that you will trust them in that way, right? And so I think there's a little bit of like arrogance in the idea of like, no one would ever infiltrate our super secret meeting because no one even knows that our super secret society even exists, right? So a random golem wandering in, yeah, sure, maybe that's a bit of a fuss, but like what can golems do, right? Like the general conception of a golem is that they are supposed to be, even if we go shoot back to the beginning of the podcast, like Jeeds, right? Who don't really exist anymore because they are inert in a fucking cupboard, but they are background details, right? Everywhere you go on campus, they would just be there. No one really pays much attention to them because they're just like the people who do the stuff on campus.
Yeah, they're beneath notice.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a piece of detail. You don't notice every single like door you walk past or like car that goes by or pigeon on the street. And if you're in a magical school, you don't notice every golem. If one walks into your party and is just a cool new novel invention, sure, maybe you look at it with a bit of scrutiny and it starts talking, and you go, oh, wow, I didn't know these ones talked, but I only interacted with the ones with like blue or green robes, so maybe the golden ones are just special, right? So there's that willingness to like, first of all, it's a really funny disguise, right? It's a very creative disguise to go as a golem. I'm not just going to immediately make every single person roll a fucking insight check against every single thing Sarah is saying. That's not fun, but I can point to a character who is on alert, right? And I guess a second point to that, to like cap that general stream of consciousness off, the fact that Integrity disguised herself not as like, I don't know, anyone else other than Zellicles and came back, the guy who literally walked over to see what was going on, there is this innate trust in him, a person who graduated from the school and is a member of the society for, this is the 5th year now, or 4th year now going, would be, if there was a problem, he would have resolved it, right? And so he holds our kind of standards of this secret society and the secrecy of the society at paramount in this situation, right? So him letting a golem in is a decision made for all of us that is not a problem for all of us, right? Also, there is a couple people at this party who are kind of beyond that level of alert, mostly just Delnus, right? Who was the one person who was like, oh, I've been here before. That's kind of fishy. I know that my girlfriend and all of her friends fuck around and like do shit like this, and 2 of them are here right now. So what's the chance that there's not another one here who's just
this person asking about Mira's election prospects and encouraging people to vote for Mira,
right,
who she knows has disguised self. She had disguised herself into Syndra in front of Delnus. It's a very reasonable guess to make.
She knows Mira knows about this society. She knows Mira can presumably locate people. Maybe that's just an assumption she can make. She knows Mira can disguise herself. She knows Mira is reckless right now in this week, right? And so all of those things together, when the topic of Mira comes up, puts someone like Delnus on alert, right? Which is when I started making insight checks against Integrity, actually. And so we get that little fun scene that Sarah was like, it would be funny if this, and I was like, all right, well, okay, you've ruined, you spoiled
I'm
it.
so
but yes,
sorry, I didn't
no,
realize.
it's fine. Literally, don't worry about it. It's fun to predict things and be right, but that's the general gist of it. If there's like a fun situation going, I'm not gonna fucking can it just because I'm a curmudgeon, right? Like, you guys get to infiltrate, you guys get to walk and talk, and as long as you don't do some weird ass shit. Like, Integrity was very close to being caught early on because she did not know that she was impersonating a paladin, and then said, oh, I'm sick. And then the guy's like, wait a second, that doesn't quite make sense, right?
There was one thing about that specific meeting that I took an interest in, if we're on the topic of the socialization. It was a thing that was said.
I think I was about to mention the same thing.
Brilliant. It was a thing that was said by Christina, and when I heard it, my ear perked up a little, which is when she was talking about how the original conception for the society was to exclude certain high-achieving students from social experiments done at the school.
Yes.
I'm very curious. I presume you don't want to tell me your entire conception for the history of Wildcliff here, but I think these are some of the first little nuggets we're getting of, and there were some before, people used to get killed in the duels, all of that. Wildcliff has not always been a very good and ethical place, and I'm curious what your thought process is there, or how you kind of thematically are bringing that into the show and the whole history of this place.
Yeah.
It's on a massive graveyard. I'm just curious about how all of that comes together.
Yeah,
they did the Stanford prison experiment.
yeah.
And, like, this is how they found the guards.
So, yeah, that's a very wonderful observation. I'm glad that you have keen enough ears to pick up on those little things, because those are, at this point in the game, those are the kind of breadcrumbs that I'm going to try to seed, and picking up on those is like a fun thing. Yeah, I absolutely plan to get into that as this arc kind of unfolds, and I guess it's just kind of like the subtext of every single arc on Wildcliff that has preceded, or just the general like existence of Wildcliff. There's always this, it is a character of itself, and there's always this question about it, the innate mystery of why the fuck did they build a school on this place, right?
Yeah.
That can first of all be answered by like a couple of times we've breached into like me just explaining arcane theory and stuff like that, where Wildcliff is a super big pool of magic, right? And even after hundreds of years of casting spells here, it isn't going away, right? So that's like a baseline explanation for like, yeah, that makes sense why a bunch of mages would gather around this source of magic so that they could experiment and do a bunch of cool stuff, right? But like, what were the origins of Wildcliff in its structure? Because if we think about like, this has come up previously on the DM section of like the typical wizard and apprentice structure of magic training that you see in a lot of fantasy and just is prevalent even in this world, the rule of two. Yeah.
Sorry.
So if you conceive of that, you can think like, oh, presumably there was a founder, maybe they took an apprentice, maybe there was 3 founders, maybe they all just started taking a bunch of apprentices and then realized that the amount of magic meant for greater experimentation, right? The thing that Christina says about the HSE, the Hedrick Society for Excellence, is a way to like separate out high achieving students and people who will essentially be people after graduation is like the intent there. As with any secret society, you want to like rub shoulders with the powerful people around. Just like the one putting out that the information exists about the founding of Wildcliff in case there is further curiosity, because just relating to Shiora, right? That's an important thing. Secondarily, putting out there this information that like maybe the origins of Wildcliff are not so what's the word I'm looking for?
Pristine, like
altruistic. It's not so altruistic maybe as a bunch of wizards got together and decided, you know what? A lot of people should learn magic. Maybe it was a case where they needed experimental people, so they brought on a lot of students. We also know that in the past, Wildcliff had a lot more students in attendance. So
the smush was a very fun. I mean, I know that was part of looping and getting new classes, but we also know that there were larger years.
Yes.
And that is interesting because, especially in contrast with Wildcliff having pared things down now and yet still having very expensive tuition, it makes me wonder if perhaps the barriers to entry were much lower in the past because they could not only make that amount of money from lower tuition and more students, but also because people who did not have the resources to attend a prohibitively expensive academic institution could also be used for other purposes.
Test subjects.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say guinea pigs, but I thought that would be a little rude. But yes.
Yeah, it's essentially like it's a scholarship where you are not getting in based on like your intelligence necessarily, but how willing you are to like, hey, how much are you willing to give of yourself to this school?
And that's like an unconsciously kind of chosen thing on behalf of the students. Students arriving at Wildcliff have a lot more, like the general flock has no clue about the HSE. They have no clue about undercampus shit. They have no clue about the Hatch. None of it. They're just like, oh, this is just a cool university that I go to, right? And they will pass through its halls one day and never return and never know any deeper information. And they don't need to, right? There's only 2 students chosen every single year to join the HSE and achieve this kind of like higher position above the other students. And like maybe time long ago when like traditions, when like it's like kind of that thing where in D&D, because races live a long time, it's hard to have traditions fall out of like knowledge, right? Or like even information about like Shiora. It's strange that this civilization has no information about it when things are so long lived. And so the conceit there is that everyone died all at once, so it's difficult to have anything preserved or pass over. There's no generations that overlap for the information to kind of transfer along. Similar to like what we see with the giants, where one person from the last generation starts the new generation, right? Or starts the new cycle. That's like a kind of transferred intelligence of like the people, right? With Wildcliff, there's only 2 chosen every year that get to like learn, or probably previously learn about what the hell the origins of Wildcliff were and what those actual, like in specific experiments that were being run on like the student body at large are. But now it's just kind of like a fun anecdote on a secret society that's all about just like, oh, we're all people who are like pursuing higher arcane learning, and like, do we want to be social climbers after graduating, or like be in the magical society as movers, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's why like we got to see Serenep there as opposed to Kurt.
Yeah, I can go into the reasons
scored
Serenep
higher
was chosen.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of criteria that I thought would be very important to the HSE. And obviously social standing outside of the school is important. And Serenep has lost that, but there is like a promise that she could maybe ever get it back. That one's uncertain. That one is a weird spot for Serenep.
But it's more potential than someone like Kurt.
Exactly. Kurt is literally some
may,
poor dude from like some bumfuck town. But yeah, Nathan.
Yeah, if we were to like think of as if they're like they're buying stock in certain individuals' futures. Yeah, Serenep is like a stock that was worth a whole lot and has had a dip, and shit. If you buy low, then there's a chance that like it may bounce back. No
Bitcoin
problem.
over Blockbuster, am I right?
Oh my
this
god.
Girl who has no support in the social world right now. If we come in and act as like a comforting kind of place to be like, hey, we still believe in your social standing and we'll still treat you as if you are a noble person, because in the case that you do eventually regain your standing, we want to be reimbursed by being like people that you think fondly of, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a big component of it, right? The next is obviously intelligence, which they just use the grading scores. The next is external interest in magic. Windsor Wallaby made a golem, right? And that's something that won't go unnoticed. Like Winslow, I think, is just like, he checks every single box for them except for the social standing one. And even then, he does have external things in that he worked an internship for Crow despite being a nobody, right? He's met with the council multiple times. And then for both of them, they both won the tournament, displaying very potent magical powers compared to someone like Kurt, who lost in the first round.
Like a fucking chump.
Yes. But that's why Kurt was passed over. Smart, but doesn't smarts are the only thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask Sarah, you and Sam essentially had to carry episode 195. Like, you were the only 2 people who were able to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to have that much weight on your shoulders, especially like just in terms of the airtime that you have to take up as well? And like, Luke, I would love to hear your input as well once Sarah answers, but like, I want to hear, how did that feel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always do think about the podcast, not just in the sense of my own playing, but also in the sense of the audio experience for listeners and the experience of everybody. So whenever I feel like I am taking up too much time, there's a little bit of self-consciousness for me about that. But obviously, Winslow and Integrity were out of commission, and so it's a thing of not only like what will move the plot forward in a way that's fun and interesting and in line with like what Mira wants here, but also just this thing of it is a lot was thrown at us very, very quickly in terms of we understand that there is some kind of Bailey patron plan going on, but we don't know where it is and we don't know what it is. And so we were kind of given these 2 choices, right? In terms of we either get to stay behind and, you know, possibly trip supervise our friends or go and confront it. And so it wasn't too difficult in terms of play, just in the sense that the biggest stressor was, like I said earlier, the fact that we were expected to act very quickly, and Luke was not giving us like any time to breathe, which I loved. It was fantastic, and it really helped me probably feel in line with how Mira would actually feel in that moment.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, in terms of like just following where the action is, was a lot of reacting, just in the sense of, oh, there's a crawl space, I'm going to go look at the crawl space. There's some objects here, I'm going to investigate them. I think where the big challenge came was when we were given this either or choice of, you can leave and go try to pursue Bailey and stop him, or you can stay here and trip supervise your friends. You cannot do both. And I think that was the biggest, like the most difficult thing for me, in the sense of understanding that Sam and I are the only players who are able to act with agency here, and whatever choice we make is going to have very significant ramifications on everybody else. I don't think we made the right choice in terms of the well-being of our characters, but I think it was the right choice in terms of interesting play. However, you know, we may be proven wrong there, but to essentially answer your question, I think the biggest challenge when not everybody is able to meaningfully affect the scene, and yet your consequences affect everybody's, is a combination of like what is fair to other players, what is fun to play and listen to, and what is in line with what the character would want and what would do. I think that was the right call there.
Yeah. I think that I really this doesn't really pertain to like the playtime thing. From my perspective, at least, I can touch on it quickly. We already had 2 episodes that was pretty much just only Integrity and Winsler.
Yeah.
Sure. Some may hate them. Some may hate on them for no reason other than they're, you know, detail-oriented about fucking everyone getting fair play. It's fine. They were badly paced. I wanted the fight to happen earlier. But consequently, now we get Sereneth and Mira having a thing. I didn't plan that. It's just a fun coincidence, and the kind of like complementary nature of those 2 things is kind of fun for me.
I'll say it's a fucking tough call as a DM because the instinct is to include everyone, you know? So I kind of appreciate you sticking with like, no, you guys are out of commission right now. This is what is happening. Instead of trying to split focus. And I think the episode is stronger.
My villains need time to do their shit, right? If I can take you out for 24 hours, I'm going to take you out for 24 hours. You drank the water. You ate the food. You drank the wine, right? I'm not going to, it would be bad DMing, I think, to set up this terrible poison that's going to take everyone out and incapacitate them for a period of time, and then not like make the players incapacitated for a long period of time, right? There's surely magical solutions to this that they could have taken. Like, sure, if Winsler and Integrity were just hauled in a wheelbarrow over to the infirmary and they were like, you guys gotta cure this poison on them, that could have been done. That would have taken an hour. That could have taken a fucking hour, right? And then Bailey and his goons would be off elsewhere. And like, even spending the amount of time that you guys did spend to try to locate Bailey, I was like, there is a very slim chance he will be there when they arrive, right? That was something I rolled the D20 on my end for, right, when I was like pressuring them to know if Bailey would be out in time to not be confronted by Mira and Sereneth. He wasn't, which makes a bit more fun mystery, and also has a very bad side effects for Bailey in continuing to use magic in his current state.
Ooh.
But that kind of like,
he's such a pathetic little worm now. I really love it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, he was always like a worm, but now he's got like that, like really like distressed look to him, which makes like a certain sect of people really think he's hot. Which
oh God, you're right. There is gonna be a big.
Bailey's
he has
very
beautiful
attractive.
eyes.
That's the truth.
He's this
Yeah,
beautiful, like
this
pathetic,
shitty,
blooded
ratty
little worm.
wormy personality. Yeah.
That is an appeal to people. Listen, you get a fucking Draco Malfoy in here, and everybody loses their shit over it.
You see a guy abusing his, like, you give a man a scrap of power and he will abuse it, right? That's a telling piece of a person. And like, even right now, he's been given a little morsel, a little scrap, and he's using it to go all around the place and evade his enemies in this moment, right? Who he knows to be Mira. And he's acting in these ways to win against Mira in the very end of it, right? This man is taking very big risks and is not going, like, the reward is nothing, right? The same way Mira's taking risks to break into this place, find Bailey, do all these things, get dirt on him. The reward is nothing. The reward is just beating Bailey, right? There's that is the end unto itself. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And I think that's a really fun premise for an arc, right? I think I said this in a text chat somewhere
of
where
the
I said,
actual election are not that high.
They're so low.
Because people, I think,
no one knows about the event planning committee at
right,
all.
right,
I was
right.
hoping
I
to make
think
that clear.
So funny.
some people, I feel like
Yeah.
among our listenership, have this idea that this basically puts you in charge of the school. It doesn't. It doesn't do shit. You get to plan parties.
Yep.
This is about beating Bailey.
Yeah.
And, for Bailey, presumably beating Mira. I'm curious, Luke, actually, and
Yeah.
you kind of touched on this earlier, but the thought process entirely behind putting us, the players, in a situation where we might drink this potion and just get taken out of commission for half a day or whatever we happen to roll.
The max was
What
24 hours, which is fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what was the thought process behind that situation? How do you, as a DM, because I imagine there is a difficult thing of, you want to be fair to your players, you don't want to take them out of the action at an interesting part, but you still want to set up this very fun conflict. What were the deciding factors in putting this potion that knocks us out
Yeah.
and connects us to the network into the game?
So, we need to talk about big picture arc stuff to understand why that's an acceptable thing. Every arc has some initiating event wherein a magical mystery is taking place across campus. You, the students, start looking into it and start pulling at the threads, unraveling it, right? Putting all the pieces together, and then head down underneath the school into the privacy of anywhere, the sewers, Nesca's place, blah, 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 and take care of it. Out of sight of the public. You or someone mentioned this in the last CNC, and I think it's a very keen observation. The time for hiding things is over.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and that relates to the Shiora thing. But also, I thought it would be utter dog shit to do another arc where we go down into the sewers or into the undercampus to try to find Our Lady of the Deep and stop her meddling in the academic affairs or the election affairs. We done that a lot. We've done
Right.
that so every single time.
And I was very skeptical during the sessions after the rat fight. I was saying to some of my friends, I was like, what is the point of this? We did this. This was food for thought. What the fuck is happening right
Yes.
now? So it's very heartening to hear you say that you have a very different conception for how exactly this is going to go, with these things being brought up on the surface, into the public eye, presumably, of Wildcliff.
I told Nathan last episode that my midpoint for this arc was going to be this meeting and the subsequent, what I was calling, I think, in episode and in my notes, the candidates symposium, right? That was the planned midpoint, and I'm not certain if that's the midpoint anymore or if we're a lot closer to the end now, because taking people out of commission for half a day more or a day allows me to make a significant amount of moves to put things into the public eye, right? So we could say, imagine if, what would be a good situation? Imagine if the Oblex fight just happened in the exam room or during an exam, right? That would be super public, right? There's no way to go back from there. So if this villain who is helping Bailey takes her action during the symposium in a very public way, then there's no putting that cat back in the bag. And that was always the intention, was to start making hard moves at the symposium from the villain's end. And it's a cherry on top for the day before for all of you guys to find your way into the HSE meeting, and so for people to get poisoned. And since all of you are there, and since the events are proceeding right now instead of tomorrow, I'm much more confident in springing this and not having it just be it lasts an hour, right? Because this is the moment that I need to make this move, or else I've wasted the opportunity. I've missed it. I'm moving late, right? You spoke earlier. You guys were reacting to what I was doing, right? And then at a certain point, it turned, and I was reacting to what you guys were doing. When Serenep goes, I want to cast Scrying and see where Bailey is, and we're gonna go find Bailey. And I had never planned for you guys to go and search Bailey out after this meeting. I had planned for it to be a tomorrow thing, for it not to be an immediate thing. So now I am reacting. What is happening right now? What are the immediate side effects of what Bailey has done tonight, right here, right? So there's that really nice switch of reacting.
Has your new style of prep made that easier at all?
That's a good point. Yes, 1000%. Yes. Because I just got to take all the things I knew that were going to happen to Bailey and just be oh, yeah, we're just going to put them on display right now, right here. And so to cut through all the fucking words I just said that were so disorganized, my confidence in poisoning and taking Integrity and Winsler out right now. And then knowing that Mira and Serenep are abandoning them to go find Bailey and potentially maybe solve this before it escalates, that means that when that goes poorly, I can react and make things very public and start taking those moves that I had hoped to be able. Like, there's these things that exist as like ideals, as like you're a DM and you're like, oh, if this happened, if this one little thing happened, it would be so perfect. Sarah, you almost made something like that happen during the rat fight. Integrity has had her orb for a year now, right? Those are really potent, powerful magic items that she just carries around on her.
Oh shit, she would have had it. Yup, you're right.
Exactly. The platonic ideal for me, it's happened once before, is to separate Integrity from her orbs.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my god.
This gives me the opportunity to do that. This gives me the opportunity to put Winsler and Integrity right into the thick of danger and into the heart of the problem. And then we can have this fun, like, them either trying to get out or you guys, provided Mira's okay, trying to get in and get there and trying to reconnect the two of you, which we had that dynamic with the catacombs where we were split into two parties trying to reconnect, but that was kind of like not so urgent. This one is kind of like, we need to find where Winsler and Integrity are right now. And
too bad the person with locate creature is unconscious.
And so, like, Integrity and Mira are going to be suffering consequences. It's going to be very public, all the events that will proceed from here. And it's just been like this beautiful, we don't even have to play the next 2 days for me to start making all the Our Lady of the Deep and Bailey's shit public and start making those moves. And it's such like a wonderful gift. That's the only way I could describe this, is like, I think the second episode, when we started recording, I was like, I'm not enjoying how much time we're spending on this night, because I had prepped the HSE meeting, I'd prepped the symposium, and I had prepped stuff for even the day after that, right? And so I was like, shit, we're really wasting a lot of time here. But the moment that it became reactive on my end and things started moving a lot faster, I think that's the key thing. Whenever there's these moments where I am like, there's this really quick inflection between who is reacting to who, right? And so those are the moments I think can, like, for you, Sarah, like what you said, like, really put the pressure on, because you made a choice and then I immediately go, okay, now make another choice. And you're like, okay. Yep. And then it's just that for like 15 minutes straight or 10 minutes straight. And it
felt like a fish on a hook being reeled in.
So those little moments of like inflection for reactivity are like really great for letting big events unfold. And also, it's just really fun to play, right? That's like ideal D&D, is when it's constantly flip-flopping between who's reacting and who's being proactive, right?
It's like a fun little tug of war.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a law of physics, every action, reaction, all that stuff.
Totally.
We're here applying the principles of physics to D&D. Everything is universally true.
I feel like I'm rambling so much.
Sarah comes on this show and it becomes 100% smarter, I guess. This is wild.
I feel like I'm rambling so much in this episode, and it's because I gave away one of my fucking aces already, which is fine because I want people to know that that's a threat. Carla knows that's a threat. I've told her such, that Integrity is not going to have her orbs the next time we see her, right?
Yeah,
and
God, that's so fucked up. I love it.
Of that. Back in the rat fight, Sarah, you went after Integrity and you're like, can I dig around in her pockets to try to get shit? And I was like, absolutely. If Integrity had bad, that was going to be the loss of an orb, right? That was the orb of progress going down the fucking rat drain. And we didn't get it. And I was like, oh, damn, that sucks. That would have been an iconic moment for this arc. And I had a plan for what would happen, but I guess we'll never get that. And then Integrity drops unconscious and you guys leave her behind. And it's like, right here at my doorstep, a gift like this? But there's other things that I'm excited for, like, that I just don't want to talk too much about. I don't want to show too much of my hand, so I'm really rambling around.
I'm so tempted to just, like, pry more to get you to show more of your hand. But I think all of this has left me with a few questions to marinate on for our next session of Sliding into DMs. I'm quite interested in, as you say, like, as these big moves become more public, you have to also balance that against the genre staple of, like, well, any sort of, like, administration or adult is going to be useless because they just don't know, or like something like that. Now they have no excuse if this is all going to be open and known. I'm very excited to see how you balance that. And then also as players, how you navigate a new world that you don't have to hide what all you have done for the school.
That's something I've been thinking about a lot, especially with the potential public nature of everything coming to light, especially because I know that all of this for election-wise is going to be a very large blow to Mira. I'm thinking about how she's going to try and twist all of this in her own benefit, point out every single fucked up thing with the school that she's been able to help with, what is worth revealing, what is not, and so I'm really excited to see how all of that comes together in upcoming episodes.
My note on what you've said, Nathan, and just generally like publicizing things going public. There's a thing in media that I'm a big fan of, and I always look at it because sometimes I have a really bad judge of when something is an irreversible state change for a piece of media. And like, it's one of those things where once you go through it once, you know what the big moments that completely change things are, right? Those things that can like it's so difficult because a lot of time it's like these really tiny subtle things, right? And so here, the subtle thing that is going to lead to an irreversible state change for the setting of our game is that Mira and Serenep chose to leave Integrity and Winsler there. Here's my hope and dream for the next couple episodes, for the rest of this arc, for the rest of this game that we're running, the rest of this campaign, right? My intent is to make everything change so that we can't go back to the way things were before, and there's going to be a really short shelf life on that, right? Because like there's very little shit you can get away with when everyone knows what's happening, when every single person on campus knows that there's this terrible things going on, when the adults on campus, when the professionals are forced to act, when the high-level NPCs are forced to act, there's a very little shelf life on any problems being left around, right? So my hope is that we can do this little state change in a very compelling way. We've started in a very compelling way. And I hope that next episode we can cart it off. And then I hope that we can get into the finale of this arc pretty quick after that.
Well, I am so excited to see it. And I want to thank you both for joining me
Thank you.
Here today.
Yeah.
My hopes are high for the future. Like it is, as you say, this has been a flashpoint episode of like the status quo is going to shift majorly. And I'm excited to see what that means for the campaign at large. But thank you both for joining me. Sarah, it's your first time joining us.
Can't believe this.
Would you mind telling people about, how, if they really love the show, what all they can do for us?
Okay, but I just don't remember, like, what things I'm supposed to tell them. Can you remind me?
Sure thing. Well, first, you want to be able to tell them about how, if they want to financially support the show, they can go to patreon.com/trialsandtrebs and throw a few bucks our way per month. That goes to helping keep the lights on for a lot of our players. Like, genuinely helps them pay rent. And let's say you want to do that, and then you have a little bit of extra cash lying around. You can head over to trebmerch.com. Trebmerch.com in order to buy a cool Ascend shirt, various stickers, etc. But, of course, then there's, I know what you're about to ask.
What am I about to ask?
What do they do if they don't have money? That's right. They can go on their podcatcher of choice and just rate us 5 stars, leave us a little quippy review, which we love to read. And finally, they can also follow us on Instagram at Charles and Trips.
Yeah.
Look at all the cool art.
Oh.
All the cool episode teasers.
Great. Okay, I'll make sure to tell everybody all of that.
Oh, don't forget about the
Perfect. Go
Discord
for it.
either. There's a link down in the description.
Oh,
to
I
join
don't
it.
remember the Discord. Nathan, can you tell me what I'm supposed to tell them about the Discord?
I know that the Discord is a fun place for, our fans to interact with us, for us to, read theories and whatnot. And you can find that Discord here in the actual podcast description. You don't have to go anywhere looking for it. You don't have to Google anything. We have it right here for you. So you can just say that, and that'll probably get people to get a clue.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
But I want to stop my recording first and practice it a few times.